Hi and welcome back to Reddit Whispers. It's strange to be sitting here, talking into a microphone, sharing something so intensely personal, but I suppose that's the nature of these things, isn't it? Anonymity provides a strange sort of comfort, a blanket under which you can reveal the ugliest parts of your life without the immediate judgment of familiar faces. The story I'm about to tell you isn't one I ever imagined I'd be telling. It's a story of betrayal, the kind that rips through the very fabric of your reality, leaving you questioning everything you thought you knew, everything you thought you had built. It's the story of my wife, our 20-plus years together, and how it all came crashing down in the span of a single week. A month ago, I posted on here, a tentative, hesitant post outlining a gnawing suspicion, a gut feeling that something was terribly wrong. I titled it something like, "I think my wife is cheating." The comments were a mixed bag, some offering support, others skepticism, many telling me to look for concrete proof before jumping to conclusions. Well, I found it. I was right. And the reality is so much colder, so much more calculating than I could have ever imagined. Our story begins, as many do, with a foundation of shared history. We met young, barely out of our teens, full of the kind of naive optimism that only youth can sustain. We built a life together, brick by painstaking brick, 20-plus years. That's a significant amount of time, enough to witness entire eras of your life begin and end. We had 4 kids, all older now, on the cusp of their own lives, their own stories. They were our world, the central pillar around which everything else revolved. We weren't perfect, no couple is, but I thought we were solid. I thought the foundation we'd laid was strong enough to withstand anything. We'd weathered storms before, financial hardships, the stress of raising a family, the inevitable friction that comes from 2 lives intertwined for so long. There was even an affair, a decade ago, her affair. It was a brutal, soul-crushing experience, a wound that I thought had scarred over, even if the memory remained. We went to counseling, we talked until we were raw, and we made a conscious decision to rebuild. I chose to forgive, to believe in her remorse, to believe in us. For 10 years, I thought that's what we were doing, rebuilding. I thought that chapter was closed, a painful but distant memory. It turns out it was just on pause. The catalyst for this recent implosion was my side hustle. It's a venture I started a few years back to bring in extra money, to make life a little more comfortable for us, to maybe retire a little earlier, to travel, to give the kids a better launchpad into their own futures. It involves long-haul driving, taking me across the country for a week at a time. I don't love the time away from home, but I saw it as a necessary sacrifice, an investment in our collective future. It's ironic, isn't it? I was out there on the road, grinding away for our family, while the very foundation of that family was being systematically dismantled back home. This particular trip was no different from the others. I left on a Monday morning, the house still quiet, the sky still dark. I kissed her goodbye while she was half asleep, a routine we'd established over the years. "Be safe," she'd murmur, and I'd whisper back, "Always." Before I left, we talked about her plans for the week. Her father has been battling some serious health issues, a slow, cruel decline that has been hard on all of us, but especially her. He lives about an hour away from us in the same state, but far enough that a visit requires some planning. She told me she was going to spend the week with him, helping out, offering comfort, just being present. It made perfect sense. I encouraged it. I thought it was a good thing for her to be with her dad, to have that time. It never once occurred to me to question it. Why would I? It was a noble, compassionate reason to be away from our home. It was a perfect cover. The week on the road was grueling, as it always is. Long stretches of highway, endless cups of bad coffee, the monotony broken only by truck stops and the changing landscapes outside my window. I missed my bed, I missed my kids, I missed my wife. I'd call her every night, a brief check-in to see how her day was, how her dad was doing. The conversations were normal, mundane even. She sounded tired, a little stressed, which I attributed to her father's condition. She'd ask about my drive, about the job, about when I'd be home. There were no red flags, no hints of the deceit that was unfolding hundreds of miles away. Looking back, her performance was flawless. She played the part of the dutiful daughter, the worried wife, with an unnerving conviction. I was the fool in the audience, completely captivated by the illusion. The apathetic audience member, completely unaware of the backstage drama. We share one of those location-sharing apps on our phones. It was initially for the kids, a way to keep track of them when they were younger, to have that peace of mind. But over time, we all just kept it on. She liked knowing where I was on my long trips, seeing the little dot representing me crawl across the map of the country. I rarely, if ever, looked at it. I trusted her. I had no reason to check up on her. The thought just never entered my mind. It's funny how trust works. It's a fragile, delicate thing built over years, and yet it can be shattered in an instant. For 20-plus years, I had extended that trust to her, even after the first betrayal. I believed we had repaired it, reinforced it. I believed we were on the same side. The truth is, I was on a side of my own, a solitary player in a game I didn't even know was being played. While I was pushing through miles, fueled by caffeine and the thought of returning home to my family, she was making plans of her own. While I was thinking about our future, she was revisiting a ghost from our past. The Saturday of that week is the day that will forever be burned into my memory. I was somewhere in the Midwest, I think, tired and road-weary, looking forward to the final push home. I called her that evening. She said she was at her dad's, that things were tough, but they were managing. She sounded convincing. I told her I loved her and that I'd be home soon. She said she loved me too. I now know that as she was speaking those words to me, she was already hours away from her father's house. She was already on her way to him, the other him. The man she had an affair with 10 years ago. The man I thought was a footnote in our history. The man who, it turns out, was a recurring character in a secret story she had been living without me. The sheer audacity of it is what gets me. The level of premeditation. This wasn't a spontaneous mistake, a momentary lapse in judgment. This was a calculated act of deception, planned and executed with a chilling precision. While she was supposed to be caring for her ailing father, she was instead embarking on a 4-hour drive in the opposite direction. 4 hours, to a hotel, to meet him. The logistics of it all are staggering. She had to lie to me, lie to her family, and construct this elaborate narrative to cover her tracks. She had to find a window of opportunity, a moment when she thought no one would be watching, no one would be checking. And she found it. She used her father's illness as a shield, a sacred, untouchable excuse that no one in their right mind would ever question. It's a special kind of cruelty to exploit a family tragedy for your own selfish desires, to use a father's pain as a cover for your infidelity. That part, I think, is what hurts almost as much as the affair itself. It shows a fundamental lack of empathy, a void where a conscience should be. It's a betrayal not just of me, but of her entire family, of the very concept of decency. While I was navigating highways in the dark, my thoughts on getting home safely to her, she was navigating her own dark path, one that led her directly away from me, from our life, from everything we had supposedly rebuilt together. The long drive home was filled with a sense of anticipation, the usual eagerness to shed my road-weary skin and sink back into the comfort of my own life. The final leg of the journey is always the hardest, a 17-hour marathon of asphalt and white lines. I pushed through it, my mind set on that moment of arrival, the familiar turn into our driveway, the creak of the front door, the feeling of being home. I finally pulled in early that Monday morning, the sun just beginning to hint at its arrival. The house was quiet. She was at work, and the kids were at school or work themselves. The silence was a welcome respite after a week in the truck. I was utterly exhausted, a bone-deep weariness that only a long haul can induce. My only plan was to sleep, to let the hum of the road finally fade from my ears. I managed a 4-hour nap, a brief, dreamless plunge into unconsciousness. When I woke up, the house was still empty. It was in that quiet, unassuming moment that my world tilted on its axis. I don't know what prompted me to do it. A flicker of the suspicion I'd voiced a month earlier, a subconscious unease. Or maybe it was just random chance, a bored impulse. For the first time in a very long time, I opened the location-sharing app. I wasn't looking for anything in particular, maybe just curious to see her at her workplace, a mundane confirmation of our shared, ordinary life. But what I saw was anything but ordinary. Her location wasn't at her office. It wasn't at her father's house. It was a pin dropped on a hotel 4 hours away. My first reaction was confusion. It had to be a mistake, a glitch in the app. I refreshed it. The pin remained. I zoomed in, my heart starting to pound a slow, heavy rhythm against my ribs. I checked the history, and there it was, the digital breadcrumb trail of her betrayal. I could see her journey from Saturday night. The straight line from her father's city, not towards our home, but 4 hours in the other direction. I could see the pin stationary at the hotel for a period of 2 hours. 2 hours. And then the journey back. The pieces clicked into place with a horrifying, sickening clarity. The tiredness in her voice, the stress I had attributed to her father's health, it all took on a new, sinister meaning. The gnawing suspicion from a month ago wasn't paranoia. It was my intuition screaming a warning I hadn't been ready to hear. The air in the quiet house suddenly felt thick, suffocating. The silence was no longer peaceful, it was menacing. In that moment, 20-plus years of shared history began to unravel. The photos on the mantelpiece, images of us smiling, of our family growing, suddenly looked like props in a play, a carefully constructed fiction. Every "I love you," every shared laugh, every moment of intimacy from the past decade felt tainted, suspect. Had any of it been real? Or had I been living with a stranger, a woman capable of a level of deception I couldn't even fathom? The foundation I thought was so solid was revealed to be nothing but sand, and the tide was coming in. The long, lonely week on the road was nothing compared to the desolation I felt sitting in my own living room, staring at a small dot on a screen that had just detonated my life. The rebuild after the first affair had been a sham. It wasn't a reconstruction. It was just me, patching up my side of the wall, while she had already built a secret door on hers, a door she could slip through whenever she pleased. And on that Saturday night, while I was driving through the heartland, thinking of our future, she had slipped through that door and slammed it shut behind her, leaving me alone in the ruins of what I thought was our home. The 4-hour nap I'd taken felt like a cruel joke, a brief respite before being plunged into a waking nightmare. The exhaustion from the 17-hour drive was instantly replaced by a surge of adrenaline, a cold, sharp clarity that cut through the fog of fatigue. I sat there on the edge of our couch, the phone heavy in my hand, replaying the location data over and over, as if staring at it long enough would change the outcome, would somehow make it untrue. But the digital footprint was undeniable, a stark, factual account of her duplicity. She was at work now, the app showed her location had updated, placing her back in our city, back in the role of the responsible wife and employee. She would be getting off soon. The thought of waiting for her to come home, of having to look her in the face and pretend everything was normal until I could confront her, was unbearable. I couldn't do it. The silence of the house was screaming at me. I needed answers, and I needed them now. My hands were trembling slightly as I dialed her number. It rang once, twice before she answered, her voice cheerful, normal. "Hey, honey, are you home? How was the drive?" The casualness of her tone was a physical blow. It was the sound of a person living a completely separate reality, a world in which she had done nothing wrong, in which she had no idea that her carefully constructed web of lies was about to be torn apart. I couldn't bring myself to match her tone. My voice was flat, devoid of emotion when I spoke. "Where were you on Saturday night?" There was a pause, a fractional hesitation that spoke volumes. It was the sound of her mind racing, scrambling for a plausible explanation, for the right lie. And the one she came up with was so outlandish, so utterly unbelievable that it was almost laughable. "Oh my God, I was going to surprise you," she said, her voice a little too bright, a little too forced. "I knew you were on that long drive home, and I thought I would drive part of the way to meet you to cut down on your travel time. I wanted it to be a romantic surprise." A surprise. The absurdity of it was breathtaking. She wanted me to believe that she had driven 4 hours in the wrong direction, away from her sick father in the middle of the night, to a random hotel, all as a grand romantic gesture to surprise me on my way home. She must have thought I was a complete idiot. Did she really think I wouldn't check the map? That I wouldn't know that the hotel she went to was nowhere near my route? That it was, in fact, a significant detour away from any logical path I would have taken? The lie was an insult to my intelligence, a testament to how little she thought of me. "That's a crazy story," I said, my voice still eerily calm. "It's a crazy story because it's not true." The line went silent again, but this time it was different. It wasn't the silence of someone thinking. It was the silence of someone who had been caught, the silence of a cornered animal realizing there's no escape. The facade crumbled. Her voice, when she spoke again, was small, defeated. "How did you know?" It was a question, but it was also a confession. I didn't bother explaining about the app. It didn't matter. The truth was out now, hanging in the air between us, toxic and suffocating. And then the rest of it came pouring out. She admitted it. She admitted to meeting a man, and not just any man. It was him. The same man from 10 years ago. The ghost I thought we had exorcised from our marriage was not only back, but it seemed he had never truly left. Apparently, they had been in and out of communication for years. Years. Little messages here and there, secret conversations, a hidden undercurrent of connection that had been running beneath the surface of our lives the entire time. My 10 years of believing in our reconciliation, of working on our marriage, had been a unilateral effort. I was rebuilding a home while she was keeping a line open to the man who had helped her try to burn it down the first time. The details she provided were sparse, but each one was a fresh stab of pain. He was married too, another layer of sordidness to the whole affair. He just happened to be somewhat in the area that weekend. Somewhat in the area, she had said. 4 hours away is not somewhat in the area. That's a destination. That's a planned trip. The fact that she would go so far out of her way for him, that the pull was so strong she would orchestrate this elaborate deception, driving for a total of 8 hours for a 2-hour rendezvous in a cheap hotel room, that was the part that truly broke me. It wasn't just a betrayal of our vows. It was a fundamental rejection of me, of our life, of our family. It demonstrated a level of desire for someone else that was so profound, so all-consuming, that it overshadowed everything else. The logistics, the lies, the risk, none of it mattered to her as much as those 2 hours with him. As I sat there on the phone, listening to the hollow sound of her confession, I felt a strange sense of detachment, as if I were floating above my own body, watching this scene unfold. The 20-plus years, the 4 kids, the shared home, the interwoven histories, it all felt like a distant memory, a story about someone else. The woman on the other end of the phone was a stranger. The man she was describing, the one who drove 17 hours to make a better life for his family, he was a stranger too, a naive fool I no longer recognized. The conversation ended. I don't remember who hung up first. I just remember the profound, deafening silence that followed, a silence that marked the official end of my marriage. The question of what now wasn't even a question. It was a statement. It was over. The shock had given way to a cold, hard certainty. There was no going back from this. This wasn't a crack in the foundation. It was a sinkhole that had swallowed the entire structure. The pain was immense, a physical ache in my chest, but underneath it something else was beginning to stir, resolve. I had forgiven her once. I had given her a second chance, a 10-year grace period that she had used to continue her deception. I would not make that mistake again. I would not be the fool twice. The mind-blowing selfishness of her actions was the final nail in the coffin. To do what she did, while I was away working for us, while her own father was sick, it was a level of self-absorption that I couldn't comprehend and certainly couldn't live with. The next few hours are a blur. I walked through the house, our home, and saw everything with new eyes. Every object held a memory, and every memory was now tainted. The wedding photo on our bedside table felt like a cruel mockery. The family pictures on the wall felt like a lie. This life I had poured my heart and soul into, the life I had worked so hard to build and protect, was a facade. I realized then that I wasn't just mourning the end of a marriage. I was mourning the loss of a reality I thought was mine. The immediate aftermath of that phone call was surprisingly, unnervingly clear. The storm of emotions, the rage, the grief, the profound sense of betrayal was there, churning beneath the surface, but on the surface there was an icy calm, a clarity of purpose I hadn't felt in years. There was no room for ambiguity, no space for negotiation or couples counseling or tearful reconciliations. This was not a wound that could be stitched up. This was a mortal blow. The trust wasn't just broken, it had been pulverized, scattered into dust, and there was nothing left to rebuild. My first thought, my only thought, was, I want a divorce. I didn't even wait for her to get home. I picked up the phone again, my hand steadier this time, and called a divorce lawyer I found through a quick online search. I explained the situation in cold, clinical terms, the words feeling foreign in my mouth. Infidelity. Irreconcilable differences. The lawyer was professional, detached, outlining the first steps, the necessary paperwork, the process of separating two lives that had been legally and emotionally entangled for more than 2 decades. Each word he spoke was a step away from the life I had known, and a step toward an unknown, terrifying yet strangely liberating future. When she finally walked through the door that evening, the atmosphere in the house was thick with unspoken truths. She looked at my face and she knew. There was no dramatic confrontation, no shouting match. I had already exhausted my capacity for high emotion. I simply told her, my voice as level as I could manage, I want a divorce. I've already spoken to a lawyer. I saw a flicker of something in her eyes, surprise, panic, regret. I couldn't be sure, and frankly, I didn't care. Her feelings were no longer my concern. My focus had shifted entirely to self-preservation, to extricating myself from this toxic situation as quickly and cleanly as possible. The next day, I called a real estate agent. Our house, the place where we had raised our 4 children, the repository of so many memories, both real and fabricated, was no longer a home. It was an asset to be liquidated, a physical manifestation of a partnership that was now dissolved. The agent is coming tomorrow to look at the house, to assess its value, to get it ready for sale. The speed at which I'm moving might seem shocking to some, but to me it feels essential. Every moment spent in this shared space is a reminder of the lie I was living. I need a clean break. I need to scorch the earth of my old life to make way for a new one. I look at our children, all older now, thankfully, and my heart breaks for them. They are the innocent casualties in this war she started. Having to tell them that their parents, their stable foundation, are splitting up is a conversation I am dreading more than anything. But I will do it, and I will be honest with them in an age-appropriate way. They deserve the truth, and they deserve to see their father choose self-respect over a hollow, broken marriage. It's the mind-blowing selfishness that I keep coming back to. How can a person be so consumed by their own desires that they are willing to inflict this level of devastation on their entire family? To risk everything, a 20-plus year marriage, the emotional well-being of her children, the stability of our home, for a 2-hour tryst in a hotel room with a man from her past. It's a level of narcissism that is truly staggering. She didn't just cheat on me. She cheated our children out of the family they deserved. She cheated our shared history out of its meaning. And for what? A fleeting moment of illicit excitement, a validation she couldn't find in the life we had built. I'll likely never get an answer that satisfies me, and I'm realizing that I don't need one. Her motivations, her justifications, they are irrelevant now. All that matters is my next step. The pain is still there, a deep, resonant ache that catches me off guard at odd moments. But alongside the pain, a new feeling is starting to emerge, something I haven't felt in a very long time, a sense of excitement. It's a strange, almost guilty feeling, but it's there nonetheless. I am on the precipice of a new life, a life that is entirely my own, built on a foundation of truth and self-respect, a life free from the constant, low-level hum of suspicion that I now realize was always there in the background. I am starting over, not from scratch, but with the wisdom and strength forged in the wreckage of my past. I have my children, I have my work, and I have a newfound sense of my own worth. The road ahead will be difficult, I know that. There will be lawyers and paperwork, the division of assets, the emotional turmoil of uprooting a family. But for the first time in a long time, the path, though uncertain, is mine to choose. I am leaving behind the lies, the secrets, and the ghosts of the past. I am moving forward with a new energy, a new purpose. It's a rebirth in a way, a painful, messy, but necessary one. The old me, the trusting husband who worked tirelessly for a future that was a lie, is gone. In his place is a man who is wiser, stronger, and ready to build a life on his own terms. It's a strange and unexpected silver lining to a devastating storm, but I'm holding on to it. It's my light in the darkness. The future is a blank page, and for the first time I am the sole author of my story. And I'm kind of excited to see what I'll write. Thank you for listening this story. Please leave your thoughts in the comments. Click like and subscribe to the Reddit Whispers for more.